Hey, what is going on, everybody? It is us, that young melanated council. You know, right there.
Yes.
Yes, we're back in effect, live in effect, full in effect. Everything is in effect as of right now. You
Mhm.
know, that's how I like to keep it. Tuesdays, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, and then wherever else you're at within this great big old world, y'all can figure that out. I don't got the brain power to do it. Not tonight. No. Any other time, probably, but tonight, nah, not
Mhm.
tonight. But
Nah,
again, we thank you guys for stopping in. We thank you guys for watching, tuning in, subscribing in, whatever you're doing to make yourselves known. We appreciate you so much. We do. We do.
Mhm.
So tonight's topic is a very fun one. It's a very good one, very fun one. Beesh.
Hey,
Hey.
let me look at the comments. Oh, oh,
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah. We're doing that. Yeah.
I
Nishi
love
messed
it.
that one up.
It's okay. That's like now it's iconic. It's like
Yeah,
what is it? It's like
like
the claw,
Yes, the claw.
two claws.
right,
I guess technically it's like this way. I can't even put my arms like that.
like dinosaurs.
God.
Yeah. There we go. The claw.
I'm not a cardiologist. A cardiologist. Oh, I'm done.
Wow.
Oh man.
And we're not professional streamers. So haha.
Ooh.
Yay. Stream Elements
True
is back
that.
up. We are not professional streamers. So
Mhm.
we are Gucci in that neighborhood.
I mean, if you guys haven't figured that out,
We're not professional.
then I mean, I guess we're doing something right if you didn't figure that out.
Hey.
Oh crap! We've blown our cover now.
Darn it. Oh man. Awesome. We love it. We love it. We love it. But yeah, we're not professionals and everything else. But the topic at hand that we're going to talk about is kind of dealing with professionals in a weird way. And so the question is that we're thinking about is, what will the workforce look like for Gen Z? What's it going to look like? Like, is it going to be the same as all the previous generations, or is it going to kind of get a very much needed facelift? Is it going to get Botox in some areas? You know, yeah, I'm going there. Is it
Honest-
plastic surgery? Go ahead.
like to go off of your Botox like metaphor. I feel like if we were to just Botox the workforce, we're still essentially keeping it as it is and in a way sort of
Mm-hmm.
going back. So I mean, I hope we don't just Botox it just to make it look young. I hope that you know I'm not saying anything about people who get Botox. I know a fuck ton of people who get Botox. Like it's totally fine if that's what you want to do. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but in terms of just like, I mean that's essentially what Botox does. Like it gets rid of wrinkles and things like that, and just gives your face a younger appearance. So I don't think in terms of the workforce that's going to work because we're you know, like I feel like COVID sort of just like hijacked this how we work and how things look and how people are working, and I think that's going to progress definitely further. I mean, Gen Z is already in the workforce anyways, but like definitely for like younger Gen Z, like kids who are still in high school, possibly even middle school. I can't remember how young Gen Z is, but people who are like in high school, just starting college, are Gen Z, like my oldest niece and nephew. And I was just been thinking about how like, what work is going to look like for them because they're already sort of thinking about how they're probably going to just get like more streams of income. I'm also thinking about how like corporate world is going to look like for Gen Z too. Like, are we going to still be as like strict and stringent for of things? Like, is dress code is starting to like wane down, but like how much more is it going to wane down? Tattoos are becoming abundant, and it's almost laughable to think that this was something to be ashamed of. Like, if you have a tattoo, then it's like, just because of that stigma. Like my hair, for example, is, I guess, in a way starting to get a little more respect in certain cases. Like you still hear of stories of like, oh, you needed to cut your hair to fucking wrestle in high school. Like, are you serious? Yeah, like, what did that do?
Yeah, I remember hearing about that.
Yeah, like that's. I was like, why did that bother you? But it seems as though, and I guess like with us millennials becoming, like the managers, directors, and C-suite level people as well, we're probably going to be a lot more lax when it comes to things, and definitely going to try to change the way I'd say corporate and just companies and like the workforce is, because we're seeing like right now, like in restaurants, we're seeing, and like the more of like the service industry, there are people who they're like everywhere is hiring, like it's sort of crazy. But I remember seeing like this one post, and I don't know how true this is, and I probably shouldn't just be using this as like a frame of reference, but apparently like this guy went and applied to like 16 jobs or something. He like 8 of them got back to him. Like 5 of them just like emailed him about something. Then one actually wanted like an interview, or they just never emailed it back. And then one actually, he went in for an interview, and the place said like, oh, $15 an hour, XYZ benefits, blah, blah, blah. But when he got in, they were saying like, oh, we're going to start you off at 10, and then eventually you're going to get to 15, and you're not going to get the benefits right away, or, something like that, maybe like a year later, and you're not going to get any like pay time off and all that. So he was like, he chucked the deuces. I don't think he really needed a job, but he just wanted to see what that was. And I'm paraphrasing the hell out of that post, so I'm not exactly 100% sure, but that was essentially it. Like the $15 an hour promising, but it was actually going to be like 10 to start. That was relatively true. I may not know the exact dollar amount, but it was something like that. So when they're saying that people don't want to work, it's because we just don't want to work for nothing. But yeah, that's sort of my rant. Oh, Ron, you're muted.
Muted.
I love the miming.
Again, not professional. Toby, your thoughts?
Yeah. God, I know we talked about professionalism, funny enough, a few weeks ago, but I guess in terms of the actual work, because dress code, that's definitely a thing. That's a little more. That's more lax. I think the whole work from home thing is more normalized. Like for us, well, for me, I really only had 1 year of working. I mean, I had internships, I did school, so I mean, I was able to have like professional experiences for about 7 years or 8 years, maybe, because I graduated high school in 2012. So I had about 8 years of professional, quote unquote, experience, academic experience before COVID hit. But I only worked full time for 1 year because I came on in 2019, January. So I got 1 good year before COVID hit everything. But for a lot of people, Gen Z, it's like they really had zero experience. Like besides, like they're learning, like this whole remote business is like all they're gonna know. I mean, they can, of course, companies are coming back on, but it's going to be hybrid. It's going to be normalized for people to be working from home. Like if you work in tech, sure, you could have already had that, or like certain other fields, but usually that's like an exception. You like request permission to work from home, but now working from home, that's like a big normalized thing. So that's like one of my first thoughts about what work will be like for Gen Z is the option of not even needing to be in a building and an office. I mean, there are certain more widespread. I know even like people who would do like orientation programs, like Summer Bridge for universities, and they had to basically do a lot of those things virtually. So it's like the building of a cohort. That's also a big thing. Is like, how do you build connection? They're not going to really learn how to do that physically as much as we would have had to. Like, of course, you know, they were in high school when COVID hit, or some of them middle school. So it's like they had some interaction in their life, but it was never going to be professional. It's just kind of like school and people you're around. So now to kind of build this bond with people from very different backgrounds, and being able to do that virtually is like another big culture shift. Now, outside of sort of like the corporate work, there's a lot of other types of work. This might actually spur on people to find other things. If they don't want to work in the corporate, maybe more people want to do like different types of work from home, like e-commerce, entrepreneurship type stuff. People might learn how to do drop shipping. This kind of ties in some of the gig economy conversations we've had before. People might look now like trying to do gig work full time, definitely difficult. But there are certain things you can build out, like e-commerce, like other things that you can get more into that will provide like a relatively stable or at least sizable income. So I think that's also going to be more popular. I don't know. I guess it depends on how people also view COVID. Like if they really think things are going back to normal, they might just like look forward to like working in an office. But if people think it's not, they might start seeking out alternative methods of working, like I mentioned. And I think people are also going to be much more selective of where they work because of like, one, you're in sort of like a buyer's market, not so much with housing, but with employment, right? You have the upper hand in theory as a worker. So people are going to be much more willing to like, negotiate certain things to even like where they decide to work. You know, if you don't have to like live in the most expensive top 5 cities in the country, you might not want to, right? Like, does it make sense to go to New York City, San Francisco, Boston, LA, wherever? Well, okay, LA, there are some places where it still makes sense to be in those environments, but in some places it's like, do you really need to for your job when you could choose to just stay at home and work? People might be much more open to just like literally working from home instead of like even doing the whole relocation thing. Or if they do want to relocate, they might go to random places. Which, I mean, people during the pandemic even would do that, where some people I knew left New York City and they went not just back home, but sometimes they would go to different places, maybe just temporarily across the country where they could get like cheap housing, because they knew that it didn't make sense to be in New York City working in a law firm that was not open. So, like, not that it's not open, they still work there, but it wasn't open in terms of the building. So people might even decide to like go to cities that are much more economically friendly, like rent prices and house prices. Especially like even like with commuting, you don't have to deal with commuting as much. That's also you know, you're gonna have to explain that to like your kids in those black and white pictures. This is what a commute looks like. This is what. So, which is, I mean, for me, like I like that. Like I used to go to my office a lot, even when COVID happened, partially because of benefits. But recently, I have not been going that much. Like especially like when let's call it near the end of summer. I wasn't going to my office as much. Like last month, I barely went. This month, I haven't done much.
So it's like optional for you to go into the office?
Yeah, you actually had to fill out a form if you wanted to get a room. Like my area is thankfully a little different. I work in like a lab, so it didn't have the same rules. But if I actually had like a physical office, I would have had to fill out a request form to basically say I'm going to keep my office, and then you had to be on campus like at least 4 times a week. The alternative, which is like the default, is just to do nothing, and then you lose your office, and you have to basically reserve a new one every time you go on campus. So that's like more work in general. Like the expectation is that you're not going to be coming in, and if you do want to come in, you need to reserve a space, or like maybe find a random I feel like they don't have as many open places because of COVID. They have been opening up though different parts, like tables that used to be closed around the cafe. So I mean, the point is that like there is space for people to come back, but it's kind of assumed that a lot of people won't be, and so that's why they make it reservations. So there's no mandatory coming back. We had a whole vaccine mandate thing that came. I don't know if I've actually mentioned it, but I think mid-August you had to have proof of vaccination, otherwise you couldn't even get into the building. So it's like unless your job requires you to be on campus, there was not like it's not like I think I don't want to say that they're encouraging people to stay away, but they're definitely not like pushing people to come back. I think they have been doing more in-person events. I've seen some of even my personal meetings where people have reserved conference rooms, but like there's no expectation. There's no expectation or push that you need to be back unless you work physically on equipment. So that's that. I think also because you have to think of these things, like I said, housing costs, transportation costs, then you have the commuting. People might just decide like, I'm just not going to deal with this. I mean, I had the opportunity to left Massachusetts and gone back home to Maryland, or even like to move further away from where I work so I can get cheaper housing. But I don't know. I think it's just a decision everyone's going to have to make. And hopefully the career centers and just like hopefully there's enough resources to prepare people. I know we're all going through unprecedented times, but like hopefully there's enough of like resources to prep a lot of this, Gen Zers, especially those who are still like in high school or in college. How do you kind of like get into the working world this way? And to really like think about all the different options. The last thing I'll say, because it's been a little bit of a winding trail, but when I was talking with a friend that I met last year at the beginning of the pandemic, kind of unintentionally, someone who used to live near where I live in Mass, but they moved elsewhere, like back home. And so we were striking up conversations. And one of the big things that I was talking about was like, I was like, I don't know, work is kind of like, it kind of blows, everything's virtual. It made things nice in the beginning, but then it's just so like, you just get lost in like your own world. You don't have people to talk to as much. And I was like, I want to just do something crazy. Let me just pick up and move and just do something completely different. And I said it like mostly joking or like out of frustration. But the person, she was like, why not? Like, why don't you do something crazy? And I was like, I could do something crazy. This is COVID. You can like kind of do whatever. Like I could go anywhere. I could like terminate my lease and just move in the middle of the country, or I could like start a new opportunity. And I never really had that kind of freedom. I felt like to do that. And I didn't do that. I'm still working at the same company, but I feel like Gen Z needs to have their horizons broadened a bit.
Mm-hmm.
Just because there's such a linear path often that we're taught about work and employment, and now there's really a chance to like really reinvent or like rethink things. And you kind of need those big changes and big like new ways of thinking. So what will it be? We'll see. But I really hope that serious conversations are being had with a lot of Gen Z people, because this is kind of like not once in a lifetime, but once in a generation, once in a century. It's a chance to really like seriously change. Because a lot of people talk about that with society and like politics. This is the big chance to rethink our government, our system with COVID. But I think it's also a chance like for the paradigm to shift, as my dad loves to say, and really rethink work and like what could happen if you don't like put yourself into the same old. So that's my spiel, I guess. Hey, what's up for a while?
Yep, and I like this quote or post that was submitted. Gen Z better start thinking business ownership. Relying on corporations to provide you a job is getting ever more precarious. AI compounds the issue. You must take control. And I do agree. And I feel as though because Elle, I think you hit this on the head, that you hit this too as well. You're saying, and I think Toby said this too, that they're more so going to go on the lines of gig work. And I know, Toby, you're saying, depending on where they live, um, it may not be useful, but in a way it could be. I mean, New York just passed a law, especially not necessarily passed a law, but as far as like gig work goes, especially with DoorDash, Shipt, those kind of gig works, they mandated those companies, if you live in New York and you work with companies, that you're going to get paid at least $15 an hour. At least $15 an hour. And then of course you get benefits that goes along with that. And so that kind of set a precedent of what's going to happen in certain parts of the country that are very similar to New York. And even then, just reading little snippets of the article that Elle posted, and I just posted in the chat too as well, they're actually going to be one of the best educated generation, just due to the fact that because of the advancements that we've had in technology, and how a lot of them took advantage of that and used that technology to do schooling, whether they did schooling at home or whether they did schooling at the campus, or even if they went overseas for schooling, because of the fact that they're able to use that technology and make it work. That's huge. That's huge. So huge. And still be able to have those very thought-provoking conversations that need to be had, and actually challenge you to think outside the box and dig a little bit deeper, and see and understand that maybe there's a different way. Maybe there is a different way of looking at things. Maybe there should be not going back to what's normal, but seriously push for something better, and push for something that's bigger than themselves, and understand that yes, there's still a lot of work that needs to be done here. And also, just to go into this point as well, Mark said, because of the fact they're pretty much going to be one of the best educated generations, that once the baby boomers finally decide to retire and whatnot, there's going to be this, I'll call it a shift. There's going to be a shift of how in the world are we going to do something better, make something better, create something better, while still using the tools that's been given to us, and modify it in a way where it helps to give birth to new ways of thinking. It gives birth to creativity and thinking outside the box a little bit more, and take that progression from what we currently have and keep pushing, and not just stop at the status quo, but keep going and say, okay, we could make this better. How can we do it? Well, let's look at this. We see what this happened over here. Let's take a little bit of the elements out of here and use it here, and see what we can do to create it to make it better. And just to give an example, there's a city just probably like 20 minutes, about 25 minutes away from where I live. They just passed not necessarily a mandate, but they passed a budget that's going to allow them to build more electric charging stations within the city, especially in those heavily areas of the city that are used for parking. They're going to incorporate more electric charging stations there, which is a brilliant idea. It's like, sure, great. Which then again is going to help infuse the need to create more electric vehicles and get those going. I mean, of course, Grand Rapids, one of the bigger cities here in Michigan, they already have the electric scooters, the electric bikes, where you can rent a bike and use that and go from one place to another place. And if you need to exchange, you can do that. They already got that going. And so it's pretty much not just for the downtown area, but it kind of spreads outside of downtown into like the other various neighborhoods of Grand Rapids. And you see a lot more businesses being birthed around those charging stations, but also just being birthed in those similar areas where it was once run down, but they're slowly bringing new life into it, which I think is huge. It's like, yes, like keep going, keep pushing, you know. And even though sure you still have the same old knuckleheads that want to cling on to this ever far-reaching dream of keeping things the same old, it is like, dude, it's 2021. Come on. We've tried it, and obviously it's not working, and we need to do something better. Let's push the envelope and let's create something. Like, rather than do something better, let's create something better. Like, trash the old way of thinking and let's do something new. Let's do something different. You know, like you were saying, Toby, you know, you were talking to your friend said that, hey, why don't you go ahead and do something crazy? Like, yeah, why not? You know, what's the most craziest thing you ever done? And it actually kind of works. Like, yeah, I will agree to that. Yes, it did work. And it was actually better. It helped me grow. It helped me develop. It helped me understand the world as it is and just understand society. But also it actually showed me who I was as a person and helped me. It challenged me. And though, yes, it was scary at first, but once I overcame those challenges, it was like, if I had to do it again, oh yeah, in a heartbeat, let's go. Let's do it. You know? And I feel as though that, and again, what Trumper was saying as well, is that you're going to see because they're a little bit more educated, or they're going to be the best educated generation, we're going to see a lot more businesses being birthed and a lot more just a lot of shifting in certain areas where it's going to help build the community, especially if the business that they're birthing is in those areas where not a lot of cash flow comes in. That's going to help to create that cash flow. It's like, you know, hey, I got a business, it's up and running, it's flourishing, I need more help. And so because they're running these businesses, you know, it's going to cause them to kind of hire more people. And again, I think, El, you said this too, where now we have more millennials in positions of supervisors, managers. They're going to kind of be a little bit more lax and be a little bit more accepting as far as dress code goes, as far as what your hair looks like, as far as piercing and tattoos go. They're going to be a little bit more welcoming and be like, you know, hey, as long as you're able to do this job, we don't care. If you have the skills and you know you have the skills to do this job, okay, we're going to pay you for what you can do. And then we can negotiate as far as if you want to do something more. Okay, we're going to pay you a little bit more for what you're doing, because we realize that when we were growing up, it sucked that we knew a lot but didn't get paid for what we knew. Mm-hmm. You know, we were just getting paid just to be a body. No, we're paying you because of your skill. We're paying you because of your talents. We're paying you because you're a decent human being at the end of the day. At the end of the day, you're a decent human being and you need to live. So we're going to pay you. Uh-huh. And, you know, it's going to help create this I wouldn't say, let me take that back. It's going to help create a healthy economy, like Mark was saying. It's going to help. They're going to help build this economy and make it healthy and get rid of a lot of the trashiness, but keep the parts that were working fine. Keep those, but just make them better. Let's see. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that was going back to. Hey,
Moot
Moody.
Hey,
Hello. Good to see you.
Yeah.
definitely.
And who wants to comment off of what Mark posted?
I'll say something. I mean, it makes sense because I guess it's just something that we're not really thinking of, because when we were thinking of the labor shortage, we're thinking of, people who are like bartenders and like the service industry and, working with people like face to face, and now they no longer can do that, which is true. But we never really thought of boomers who were CEOs of companies for like decades, who were just sort of like existing there and working there. Because I used to work in Boca Raton for like 5 years, so I know these people very well, and I'm sure Mark does too. Also from Palm Beach County, but like, yeah, they were probably just sort of there working and not really caring about like the culture shift of society and just sort of keeping things as they are. But COVID and everything, they're like, well, I got to keep my money while I can. So they probably just, up and dipped, and, now somebody else has to replace them in order to keep this company going. And so it will most likely be somebody who's like younger and, probably a little bit more understanding of, societal culture. But when you're saying that the housing price spike, I don't know. I feel like the housing price spike was due to, at least, was the housing price. I don't think the housing price spike was everywhere though, because I believe in Boston it sort of went down. Like I think like in Boston and like some of the bigger cities, like the housing prices like sort of went down. I know in Florida it skyrocketed. I have some funny stories, but like, so I think that I think that's like sort of what that is, because a lot of people moved down to Florida, and that caused the spike, because people were just like, the first time in my entire life, people were buying like above the asking price, which like this has never really happened, and people were putting more than 10% down, more than 20% down on a property, whereas normally it's usually like 10%. And like Boca and the areas where they don't really, where they just really want rich people, so they want like 20 to 25% down, which is a lot of fucking money. But now people are probably putting down like 27%, 28% to really just be able to purchase the property, because everywhere is getting outbid, and everywhere is people are asking about the asking price and everything. I've seen that in Boston, where people are buying above the asking. So it's very crazy to see this in Florida, because like I remember I even talked the previous owner, the one who used to own my property here. Like I talked them down, but this was 6 years ago. But yeah, so I'm kind of confused about the housing price spikes. I think that's mainly like in Florida and possibly Texas. I don't think that's everywhere though, or just places where people are primarily moving to. Mark on YouTube says the Great Resignation is a lot of restaurants and retail workers getting an opportunity and taking a retiree spot. Really?
Mm-hmm.
Boomers own 50% of all homes today. Yeah, and boomers are wanting to sell their homes and things like that, but it's sort of impossible to sell with how high the prices are to people who aren't making money.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, what the fuck do you do? Either they pass the home down, from like generational wealth, or they sell it. But, this is just going to be pretty difficult. So I don't really know what's going to happen with the housing market per se, because because they're going to get old and eventually die,
Right.
And what's going to happen to the property?
Right.
But I do know that, at least like with South Florida, like especially Miami, because people are moving here. Like a lot of people are moving here, especially like very rich people. They don't mind like spending like $20 million on a property that's gonna get sunken into the ocean in like 10 years. I remember reading up about that, and it's true because like they have so much fucking money, so it's like it doesn't even matter. So that's the interesting part of Florida. I'm not too worried about, like if my home is gonna like, like if it's gonna be like the 2008 housing crisis. I don't really think that's gonna happen, at least not in South Florida, because too many people are just coming here with shitloads of money trying to make Miami into the next Silicon Valley. And they just have an ass ton of money. Like the amount of money that's just in this fucking country is absurd and insane, as we all know.
Yeah.
So like, they'll be like, oh, but like a lot of them are also coming from like New York, where like the size of what you see here would be like, I don't know, like $2,100 a month for the space. So they come down here and they get a lot more space for either the same or even less money. So they're like, oh, sure, I'll spend, $20 million on this condo in downtown Miami. Why the fuck not? Like, I have the money. I like the view. And my friends are all moving down here. So
yeah.
And that is like what legit is happening. Unfortunately, I can't speak for the rest of the country, which is sad.
Right.
But I do know people are just moving to like random places because they know that if they can get like New York money in Oklahoma, and they always wanted land and a farm and like things like that, and that's what they're doing.
Yeah, agreed.
Which would be cool. Like I considered like, oh, maybe I could just sell my place, but then where would I go? Like Arkansas. Like,
right.
Right. I don't think that'd be very safe for me.
True. But I do get that, because even up north in Michigan, there's a bunch of land there's a bunch of land just out there just for anybody for grabs, really. And even in my city of Three Rivers, Erica!
Oh my gosh. Do we owe this pleasure or something?
We love you, Erica.
Seeing you.
Love you, rock.
As always.
You rock. But even then, living here in Three Rivers, Michigan, there's a bunch of land, and even in just one little section, there's like 2-3 acres you can buy, and we're watching the price drop like by the thousands. We're watching them drop by the thousands. And so to Mark's point, and also to Elle's point, yes, we're pretty much going to see a lot of the baby boomers, if they're owning property, some of them, if not most of them, they're going to pass it down to their children, grandchildren, for that generational wealth. We're going to see that. And then you're going to see others who are just going to sell it and kind of just, live off the proceeds, go down to Florida and just chill and hang out and whatnot. We're going to see that. We're going to see them move to different parts of the country where, it's nice to retire, where it's not really expensive, but at the same time, they can still get out and about and do what they want to do. We're going to see that. And so once that happens, you're going to see a lot of like property just pretty much just go up because there's not enough buyers to buy the property. I cannot talk right now. Good grief.
You're good.
I'm telling you that speech impediment is a booger. Anyways.
A booger.
Yes. Speech impediment is a booger. Anyways, with that being said, it's going to turn to a point where there's not enough buyers to buy these homes, and there's too many sellers. And yeah, that part. And so now it's like, okay, now we're going to have a crisis on our hands because we got all of this. We got people refusing now to settle for a crappy job and get a crappy pay. They're not going to settle for that. And on top of that, you're going to see another market where there's not enough people that's readily available to afford a decent housing. And so it's going to create its own weird storm. But it's like, okay, what is it that needs to be done? You know, what is it that's going to happen? What is this really going to happen? You know, and as of right now, they're almost kind of seeing it in a way. You know, you hear how some states are not keeping up with the mortgage / rent memorandum. I think that's what it's called. I forget what it is, but basically, where during the pandemic, it was supposed to freeze the mortgage rates, and those who are renting are supposed to freeze it for X amount of time. And now because it's been lifted, and a lot more people are becoming homeless and losing their jobs, it's like, what in the world are we going to do? No, you're awesome and you know it. You know it. You're awesome and you know it.
Much appreciated.
Yeah.
We appreciate you. We love you, but no, you are awesome and you know it. You're awesome and you know it. And this is the reason why you're running, because you're going to help solve this issue. Yes, you're going to help.
I'm so excited for Erica. I really am.
Yes. Yeah.
And I think
yeah. And again, it's going to lead into this homeless, and again, it's going to lead to another major homeless issue, because it's like, okay, either you got people that's not wanting to work at a crappy job for a crappy pay, and then you got all these homes that are going up that many people can't afford. And like I was saying before, it's going to create this storm of what is it going to take to kind of balance out the two, where people are wanting to go to work, but we're going to pay them a living wage and make sure that the job itself is not crappy, where they would love to come into work. Like, why not? You know, and then again, at the same time, on the flip side, the cost of home ownership is going to be at a rate where people can afford it. Where, excuse me, as the saying goes, it's not going to be an arm and a leg in order for you to pay your rent or for you to pay your mortgage. Like, you're going to be able to do it in a comfortable state and be comfortable doing it, and know that once everything is all said and done for, you can pass that on to, you know, your kids or your kids' kids, or somewhere later on down in the future, later on down in the generation or the lineage, you know, is going to be there for them, you know. And I believe that with Gen Z, they're going to pretty much going to be behind the driving force behind that, because they've already seen the effects of it, especially if they are living in New York, especially if they're living in California, especially if they're living in Texas, Florida. And we're saying all these names because these are some of the key powerhouses for the economy in most places. And it's going to kind of be a ripple effect, you know? And even in different other parts of the country where is not as big and glorious, but they're still feeling those same tremors, aftershocks, after effects, however you want to place it, however you want to name it. They're still feeling that too, but then again, at the same time, they still have that same issue of what are we going to do to solve this issue? Because now we can't just sweep it underneath the rug no more. We can't. There's got to be a different way. There's got to be a better way. There's got to be a better way. And like I said, I really do believe that Gen Z, millennials, and even the generations that come after, they're going to be behind. They're going to be in the driver's seat in this driving force of making sure that homelessness is not an issue. And at the same time, figure out what needs to change and how to implement that change. Oh, and also, so speaking about Gen Z, most of the folks that's in Gen Z, they're going to be able to vote.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to be able to vote. And by them voting or even running for office, that's going to be a huge shift as well. That's going to be a huge shift as well. And again, looking at the article that you posted, Elle, a lot of them, especially those that are like, Republican leaning and whatnot, they're actually challenging their elders in a way.
Right.
Of saying, like, okay, we understand that you're a Republican, but there's some things that you're doing that don't line up with the ideals of what it means to be a Republican. Why? We understand that, of course, racism is still very much alive. And we understand that Black folks are still getting treated unfairly. But as a Republican, and especially if you're calling yourself a Christian Republican, and we were taught to love our neighbor, how come we're turning a blind eye when we're seeing somebody, being treated unfairly? Again, going back to what I was saying before, how they're challenging folks in a way where they're having you to dig deeper and think deeper in a creative way. Is like, yeah, they're going to be doing a lot more of that, and they're not afraid to be vocal about it. We've seen them we've seen it happening for the past few years now, especially with TikTok being a good wave of information. In those cases, like, they're being very vocal. Social media, they've become very vocal about what's going on in the country and what needs to change. Very vocal.
Yeah. I've learned a lot from TikTok.
Oh yeah.
You said what? TikTok? You said, what was that comment you said about TikTok?
I said I learned a lot from TikTok.
Oh yeah.
And I think it's interesting how, like they're essentially teaching themselves for themselves, It's almost like, like FUBU, where like it's like 60 seconds of information. And I guess like they just understand their own generation and that, that they absorb so much information very quickly. And I forgot where I learned this from, but that's an advantage in some ways, because like sometimes we feel like, oh, we need a long time to learn something, but not necessarily. Like if you're able to truncate it correctly, and that's the scary part, because it's also very easy to truncate, important information incorrectly, and then you're learning the incorrect things, which I'm sure is happening, or will be happening very, very shortly. But yeah, and I was just sort of thinking how going back to like what will work look like for Gen Z, like, just be able to, I feel like they're going to, at least ideally, hopefully, like between millennials and Gen Z, I feel as though that they're going to completely like just change corporate. And I mean, I speak about corporate a lot because it's just what I know. I've been working in like corporate settings for like 7 years now, and like there's just a lot of things that just always seem to be very outdated, and I feel like my generation, millennials, which is also known as Gen Y, I think we do tend to ask why a lot. Where it's like, well, why am I doing this? Why is this necessary? Why do we have to do it this way? Why aren't we doing it? Like, and then it's just like, well, this is just how we've always done it. And when you ask the dreaded why word, but I feel as though like with millennials, just because of age and everything, like we're going to be going up in ranks with manager, director, things like that. Hopefully some of them will be, changing things around. And then when they hire, of course, Gen Z and everything, Gen Z will also see and, probably feel more inspired to just talk and ask questions. And millennials will most likely be like, yeah, sure, let's do this. Because I've seen this too. Like in companies I've worked for, if I have like a younger manager, they're just sort of like, oh yeah, okay, do that. I'm like, oh, okay. Whereas like an older manager would most likely be like, I don't, it's like I gotta check around and ask people. It's like, do you though? Like, what's gonna happen if I just do this little thing?
Mm-hmm.
Like they always seem to be. I feel like the older generation seem to be a little bit more like skittish, and then it does get passed down to like the younger generation. But I feel like younger workers tend to be more like, oh, like, all right, go for it. Let's see what happens. Like I'm a little nervous, but I'm also very curious.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Hey, what's been going on?
Hey, good to see you.
Good to see you.
Yeah. What's up? But I was also thinking how, like when we have like, I don't know, like, like those like compliance videos, pretty much those, it's very common sense. Like, oh, don't smack people across the face. It's like, oh, my bad. Like, like.
You asked for it though. You said something slick, or she said something slick. They asked for it.
Right. Yeah. But I feel like maybe those like compliance videos will probably just be like 60-second TikToks. I feel like they could. Like a lot of them. It's like, oh, yeah. It's like, okay, got it. All right, cool. And they just take like a quiz. It's like, all right, boom, 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 done. Rather than like listen to like somebody like voice over something and then watch a whole skit.
Oh god, the skits.
Yeah, I forgot. His name is slipping me, but he was in a compliance video at a previous job. Like he was in Fresh Off the Boat. He played the dad. Like he's pretty famous. His last name I think is Park. He's like an Asian dude. You've definitely seen him. You know where he was? He was in The Office for that one episode where he pretended to be Jim. That was, I can't remember his name. He was in one of the compliance videos. I was like, hey, how old is this? B, he should be not here. Like this man is like famous. What's he doing making a compliance video?
Interesting.
Right, I can't remember his name. Anyway, yeah, he was also in Always Be My Maybe with Ali Wong. He played opposite Ali Wong. Anyway, yeah. So I was just thinking how like what work will look like if there even will be like a corporate. I always think about like if I were to create a company, I kind of want it to be like the uncorporate. Like how T-Mobile was pushing the uncarrier. They're trying to be like the least carrier as like if I were to make a corporate company, I'd make it the uncorporate. Was he in? Yeah, he was. Oh my god, yes. How could I forget that? Yeah, he was like the cop dude. Yeah, I can't remember his name. It's something Park, I think.
I typed it in the.
Right, I don't think it's June Park because he has like an American first name, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, if you know, Chad, if you can help me, it's on the tip of my tongue. Something Park. I believe his last name is Park. Or maybe I'm totally wrong. But I'm pretty sure his last name is Park. But yeah, yeah, I feel like they're just gonna try to make it like uncorporate. What I'm afraid of though is, you know, shit falling into old habits, like a bunch of dudes, you know, young guys just creating a company, then they're just gonna be like, all right, we're just gonna hire a bunch of hot chicks. You know, it's like, yeah, we're gonna like, I don't know, like start a business, like I don't know, like selling beer, making beer or something, and just have a bunch of hot chicks be the bartender, and they got to be, you know, this particular type of hot, because I feel like that's just gonna inevitably happen when you bring a bunch of guys together. Not to say if you were to bring a bunch of women together, like they wouldn't not hire attractive men. Like, you know, given the opportunity. Like, and it's sort of sad because, like, you know, I feel like we have to admit as humans, we do give attractive people more passes.
You got a point.
Yeah. It's like, why wouldn't you want to see this person every day? Yes. Randall Park. Randall Park. That's his name. Mm-hmm.
Oh.
Yes. So I was right. His last name was Park.
It's this thing.
That's gonna be like Richard Park? No, Riot. Yeah. All right, awesome. We solved that mystery.
On to yeah. No,
I sorry, because I did want to touch on this again about I feel as though, unfortunately, with Gen Z, they're gonna have to have like a bunch of, even us as millennials, like, let's be honest, we're gonna need multiple streams of income. That's going to be a necessity, and
absolutely,
yeah, like it's probably going to be almost unheard of to just have one job. Like, I feel like that's going to be very, very soon, if not already now. Maybe in the Gen Z world, that's already happening. I know that even my nephew is trying to find like multiple ways just to make money. You know, like he was doing Fiverr, you know, tutoring, because he you know, he likes learning languages, so he's been like tutoring different languages on Fiverr, and he was trying to like sell some stuff off of Mercari. I feel like Mercari I think it competes with eBay. Like, I tried to sell my desk off of Mercari, but I had to like ship it, and I was like, I can't do that. It's a desk. Like, I was like, oh, this is like for like selling like iPhones and shoes and, you know, things that you can, you know, pack into a box and ship, you know, if you have the means. So, you know, he was selling like some stuff off of Mercari, and, you know, just trying to like make money and things like that. So he already kind of knows that, you know, like if you can't get a job at McDonald's or Walmart, because like, you know, he's like 16. I think, so if you can't get a job at those places, or if you do and you just get like just shit hours, you're gonna need more money. And, you know, he's just a kid. Like, I don't think he has any bills to pay.
Right.
So like, if he already knows that, he has no bills to pay. Like, can you imagine, you know, like Gen Z who only have like one parent that's working, and they have to work and, you know, find ways to make money and things like that. It just seems like that's just going to be the norm, no matter your income level.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like the middle class is, starting to, I don't know, like it's just getting poorer and poorer. It just seemed like it kind of like snuck up on us. Now our feet are like just inches away from the flame. We could definitely feel the heat.
Right. No, I hear you. I hear you. You know, and there was a point you brought up, Al, and then totally I'm gonna swing it back to you, where you were talking about how like Gen Y, millennials, and Gen Z, they're gonna pretty much be able to communicate effectively. And I actually see that now with my older two kids. They're both within that Gen Z time frame. And and a lot of times, you know, of course, my daughter, she watches TikTok a lot. My son, he does too. And every so often they will come up and they'll say, you know, hey, you know, I saw something on TikTok and, you know, what do you think about this? Is what they're saying true? And we will sit down, we have like have a legit 5-10 minute conversation about it. And they're just kind of like, oh, okay. And then it was kind of like spur off into another conversation and thing, and you kind of see like the gears are turning and the wheels are turning. Like, okay, cool, great. Like this has probably been the most I've interacted with my kids and myself as a parent and child kind of ordeal, because with me and my brother and my dad, it was not as much, you know. Don't get me wrong, I love my dad to Reese's Pieces and everything else. Had a wonderful conversation with him over the weekend, and it kind of helped me see things in a different way. But at the same time, he was just kind of like, you know, hey, I really didn't mean any harm, but you know, this is why I did what I did while you were growing up. They're like, okay, I get it. Like, I get it, and everything else. And so you have brought up a really good point, El, where Gen Y, millennials, and Gen Z, they're more so coming together and talking, and not just more so talking, but it's more so of having a conversation that is very much needed and still walk away with a better understanding and in a way to kind of grow and still be themselves at the end of the day. So it was like, good point.
Right.
Good point.
Yeah, like cultures of companies are definitely going to change and shift. And it's already starting. But I think like, new companies, like what T4Y was saying, like they're going to have to create their own businesses and, and, create new cultures, because like I think they have a better understanding, or they will very like sooner than millennials, I'd say, of that this shit's not working.
Mm-hmm.
Like, a lot of them feel quite hopeless because of, climate change. Owning property is, like it is impossible. Like the minimum wage hasn't gone up really, but everything else has, and it's like, what's the point of working? Like, yeah, you're gonna still see those, like those posts on the socials about like, oh, here's my son, he's 14, he got a job at Burger King, he understands, like, what are y'all kids doing? Or like, you guys, like, he's not, complaining or blah, 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 and this and that. It's like, well, yeah, because he currently lives under your roof right now, has no bills to pay, for one. Two, that shouldn't really, like, yeah, it's cool that he has a job, but you shouldn't be using that to, like, hang over other people's heads. Like, this is how it should be.
Yeah.
And yeah, like, there's always going to be those people, but for, like, the large majority, I feel like they're just going to be like, yeah, I'm working here because I can, because I have a roof over my head, but this can't be it.
Mm. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm the boomer now.
God dang it.
Yeah.
Right. And also too, and think about this is like, okay, they're 14, they're almost they're probably already in high school, and it's like now they're gonna have to figure out what it means to have a work life balance and still be able to play sports, hang out with their friends, do a lot of the adult things that they're really not supposed to be doing, at 14. But now there are, and it's like, okay, it's kind of weird, buddy. Like, yeah, he's making money, but at the same time, he's going to find out at a really young age that Burger King sucks. That making below minimum wage sucks. Like, yes, granted, he has a place over, he has a roof, she has a roof over their heads, they have water, necessities, they have all of that. But realize at the end of the day, that sucks.
Mm-hmm.
Like, no, I'm not going to do this. If anything, they'll probably use that money that they're working at crappy Burger King and invest it and make more money. And
realistically, they're not going to do that. Like realistically, they're not going to do that. Like, ideally, that's pretty much their only choice. But
right.
they have the privilege of living under a roof where it's paid for.
Right.
They're not like strapped for cash and paying any bills or anything.
Right. Right. But at the same time, again, they have a lot of information in the palm of their hands.
Oh, right. True. Yeah.
They have a lot of information in the palm of their hands. And think about it. When we were 14, we didn't have that. It was more so of either we got a paper route, and if we didn't get a paper route, we raked yards, shoveled, cut grass. We did a little bit of here and there to kind of get some money. And then by the time you hit 15, 16, sure, we got a work permit, went to work, then we had to do, still able to go to school. So the part as far as like information as far as investing goes, we didn't have that in the palm of our hands. We didn't have access to it until somebody told us about it. And it was like, that's still at the same time, we're still like, I don't know. Again,
right. It's like, what am I putting my money into, really?
Right.
It's like you don't really have much of a choice. This is all you can do, and I hopes that this helps you, because everything else is getting depleted, like Social Security, 401k, like everything's just getting depleted, and you're not making enough money to actually retire. And it's like when you see the trajectory, like if you have Acorns or if you look at like your 401k or something, and it's like, oh, by the time you hit retirement age 65, you'll have $1 million. I'm like, oh, okay. I have no idea how much it is, but like, let's just say that as an example. I sadly don't think it's even $1 million, which is bad. But like, let's say, okay, trajectory is $1 million when I turn 65, which is like in 35 years. I don't know what the economy is going to look like in 35 years. Like, we're still using all that we know. And we already know that there's like holes and bullshit in what we know anyway. So it's like to have like an accurate trajectory, like $1 million. I mean, $1 million now, of course, in certain places is like 100K in, I don't know, like middle America, like, yeah, I could get you pretty far, but like not that much. Like $1 million in Miami is comfortable. It's definitely very comfortable, but it's still, it's not like what it was before.
Right.
Like, I feel like billionaires are the new millionaires. Like back in the day, like in the 90s, early 2000s, when we heard like, oh, Bill Gates is the richest man. He makes this much money. I don't even think he was a billionaire at the time. And yet we were like, man, he makes that much money. He has like over $1 million. It was like that movie, Blank Check on Disney that came on all the time back in like the 90s. Yeah, like, it was like in the 90s, I'd say, about like this kid who gets a blank check and then he writes it for $1 million. I think it was like $1 million or $2 million, and he buys all this stuff with it and does all these things and gets like this big old house and all that. And he was like pretending to like work for Mr. Macintosh because he just saw like anyway. So, like back then $1 million went far. Like, oh, you could get all this stuff. I highly doubt that today.
Oh yeah, no. No, not at all. Not at all. Not at all. And again, which is the reason why I was pretty much reiterating that with the wealth of technology now, 14-year-olds, they're going to know and understand a lot more now than anything else. And so they're going to pretty much, if you were to ask me, would they be better, like, when they become retired, will they have a whole heck of a lot more money than what most of us wish we could have? Oh yeah, definitely. The reason being is because of the fact that they have that information in the palm of their hands, and because they're able to kind of learn and adapt a little bit more quickly than others, they're going to be able to use that to help themselves to survive and be able to use what they learned and to be able to share it and be like, this isn't a hidden secret. Like, no, this is what I'm doing, and you can do this too.
Mm-hmm.
And even then, to be able to help others to do the same thing, especially if they're young enough and willing to learn and it's to be coached. Like, yes, that's huge. That's huge. And so I believe that not only will they be able to be millionaires and billionaires, but I also do believe that they're going to be debt free by the time they're in their 30s. If they learn and if they apply what they learned, I do believe they'll be debt free, but before they hit 30, and already be multimillionaires and understand the concept of the reason why it's needed to have multiple streams of income and use that multiple streams of income to be able not only just to help themselves, but to help people around them. And so, and again, which goes back to Gen Z being one of the more so better educated because of the fact they have that tool in the palm of their hands. And so it's like, there's no excuse. There's no excuse. That it pretty much takes that out the picture, you know? And to be able to not only just connect with people within their immediate vicinity, but also just connect with people around the world and learn from them and understand what they've done, use some of their practices and incorporate into what they're doing to help them to project a little bit more further. Again, my opinion, my thoughts.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. Like I was just thinking, and like you sort of touched on this, Ron, about like, when we were teenagers and like we got like our first job at like McDonald's or Wendy's or Burger King or whatever, we thought that was like it, like if you were fortunate enough to like, like live with, with your bills paid, like with the house bills paid at least. Like you just get a job and that was it. That's all you really, that's like your responsibility, It's like you got school and this job. And like we just felt like that was enough. However, I think like Gen Z just sort of like intrinsically know that they need multiple. Like they know that, McDonald's just won't cut it. That won't be enough. They need like McDonald's and then doing something else. They need like Burger King and then like another side hustle. Like I feel like they sort of like know that, like they're gonna they can't just, unless like you're a surgeon or a lawyer or, like doing something like that. But if you're kind of just like the average person, if you just like, go into, I don't know, like if you major in like psychology or like, like a teacher, especially,
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, I feel like, well, teachers have always notoriously had like second jobs. If you ever like ran into your teacher, like working as a server somewhere, like, or, something like that. That was always commonplace growing up. But I feel like that's just becoming more commonplace with all sorts of jobs
Mm-hmm.
where, like, whether you're just like, oh, I work in this corporate setting, however, I need an extra income because, things are starting to, like, money's starting to get thin, and I need that buffer.
Right.
Like, it doesn't seem like Gen Z really has like a soft landing pad. Like I feel like they're almost just like left to fend for themselves.
Mm.
It's, like it's just really sad. But it's just the reality that they're in. Everything.
Yeah.
Right. Exactly.
Facts.
Hey,
Hey, Jeannie.
Hey. Woo.
man, guidance counselor. That reminds me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wouldn't mind being a guidance counselor. Like, I don't think I ever like utilized guidance counselors. I feel like I should have. They're like little like not little, but like they're like the therapists for the schools, right? Almost. Like they
Yeah,
just like counselors.
because a lot of it was career based, or like even before senior year, maybe help with like your trajectory and what you want to do in school and like what classes you should take, But yeah, for more serious situations, drama, falling out with friends, relationship with like your teachers, your coaches, it very well could be like a catch all. Good God, do you really have to like manage an entire class? Because guidance counselors basically were for like a whole graduating class, and like my graduating class was like 380 something maybe. So like I can imagine bigger schools. I don't even understand. But I do remember my guidance counselor on a related note. A quote that she told me that has stayed with me to this day. She said, "You can either pay now or you can pay later." And she was always kind of advising me to keep on this path. I'm grinding now. I'm hustling now. Taking these difficult classes, whatever. You're going to be stressed now, but then later it's going to have payouts versus people who didn't really do what they need to do. And then they're struggling later in life, which I mean, I feel like that's the secret captain. We're always struggling. But at least in a different way where you're more prepared if you kind of like do due diligence. And it's not just like you could be setting up the business and the other streams of income. Like you have to like learn those things early. And so give yourself as much of a cushion because as you said, it doesn't seem like the world is. I feel like everyone's learning how to adapt to new circumstances and God, I don't know. God bless this generation. Every day I'm struggling.
Every day I'm struggling. Oh man, Rick Ross.
One thing
Go ahead, Toby.
I was gonna say the thing I thought of when Mark was, I think it was Mark's comment, was about the whole boomer thing, and I actually had thought, well, at least one article or one statistic I saw was that a lot of people are working through their retirement. I mean, I even have family members who can attest to that personally. Mm-hmm. So it's like people who should be retired right now, but essentially they have to keep working because oftentimes the debt, I mean, even I haven't really asked about college debt, but I've been surprised finding out recently how many people have college debt in their 40s and 50s and 60s. And I'm just like, God dang. And then you also have like the housing debt. So mortgages and other just debt that's not getting paid off as it should because of maybe only one parent has the job or you have other expenses to take care of. And so Gen Z, I don't know. It's hopefully they, with the amount of information, like you said, Ron, they can hopefully stay more debt free. Try to buy cars that they don't really need, like, or not buy cars that they don't really need. Like, there's a lot of things that you can do. Then you set yourself up for maybe not as much success as you should. And so hopefully we don't make some of the mistakes. And then sometimes it wasn't really a mistake, but people had no choice but to take on these big loans. They thought that was the only option. That's another big one, is like a very connected topic is like the future of education, because what's going to happen? Are you going to go to these $10,000? No, that's being too generous. $20,000, $70,000, $80,000, whatever a year for tuition. Universities, when you can learn, like, especially if learning is already being done more virtually. I mean, I'm a big proponent of the in-person part of learning, but will you need to like get that same amount of debt? I mean, you still need to learn the skills, of course, like especially if you're going into like higher end jobs, but yes. That's a big yes.
Agreed. That you got 2 yeses from me. You got 2 yeses from me.
Yeah.
No, yeah, there's, as you were saying, Toby.
I don't know. No, it was just like a various myriad of thoughts there. I was just like, yeah, with the school, it's like that's another thing that's very expensive. And with remote work and just like the future of education, I think even before COVID, people were looking more at like online classes, online schooling. I mean, you still pay for online schooling, but it's like, how much does it make sense to pay if you know that it's going to give you this huge debt load and you're not even going to be there physically to use the product? So people might have to start thinking about that. Like, and it's not a lot of time to think about it if you're already like in high school. But what are you going to do to still like get that education, but then not pay like the absurd amount of money for tuition if you're not even physically there? Like, I don't know. I'm not sure what the answer is.
What's sad is I feel as though like elementary, middle school, and high school are becoming like just huge wastes of time almost because of like what they're learning. Granted that like I don't even know, like I was gonna say some of the things they're learning is important. And I'm like, yeah, kinda. But I don't know if I'm just sort of feeling as though like, oh, because I learned it, therefore like you should learn it. But it's not like I'm, doing anything that's like, like the secant of X or something, or doing like sine and cosine every day. I don't know. Right. It's not like, like the, like the quadratic function, or, like the equation to make a slope y equals mx plus b. Like, I'm not really using that in everyday life. And it is, I understand some people do major in mathematics and, go like, like go into like the mathematics world. So, of course that's like helpful. So I think it's good for everybody to sort of know, but I guess like how much should they know? Like if this person is really liking this, then maybe they should just sort of take more classes towards that, just like what they do in college. Also, like even like the first 2 years of college, doing like the Gordon rules and all that is also kind of like bullshit too. It's like, okay, so you're impressed that I can write this many amount of words about something just to test what? Like if I got into the university, wouldn't you assume I know how to write at least? But, and then, you go ahead and graduate and then you get a job at like some publisher writing, and I'm sure you've all seen this too, where there's like typos and errors and things like that in the articles. And it's like, I didn't major in creative writing or anything at all, and I'm like, this isn't correct. Like, this sentence doesn't make any sense. Like, did anybody proofread this? Were there any like editors? No, they just wrote this shit and sent it out just to be the first, just so people can absorb it sooner than their competitors. Yeah, I don't remember exactly where I was going. Like, what I guess what I'm saying is what we learn in school and then like what's actually applied out into the real world is not exactly 1-to-1,
True.
So like it'll just be better if like we start really preparing them for these things. Like like they should learn about the Pythagorean theorem, but if this isn't like their cup of tea, then we shouldn't really like punish them if mathematics isn't their cup of tea. If like biology science isn't their cup of tea, maybe like insect science is more their cup of tea, or like finance is more their cup of tea, because some people are just like a little bit more naturally inclined to these things. Oh, sorry, I didn't realize this was a question, Brock. My apologies. Question for all. What's the life skill you're most glad that you learned, and what's another you wish you learned sooner? Great question.
It's a good question. I can't think right now of it.
What's the life skill you're most glad that you learned? What's another you wish you learned sooner? I'd say like the life skill I'm most glad about is probably like one of the few things my dad has taught me is like, I guess saving money, learning how to save. When I was like 7-8 years old, I used to always just ask my dad for $1, and he would give me $1 because it's $1. But like I didn't have anything to spend it on because I'm like 7-8 years old, not like I'm just going out and doing things. So I would just like kind of have like quite a few dollars. But he's the one who told me, he was like, okay, if I give you $1 every day, Monday through how many dollars would you have? I was like, well, it's $5. And he's like, all right, and if you hold that, then it'll become $10. The next week, and then it'll become 15 and 20. And like there's certain places that you could put it where money will stack on top of that, and that's how that's how you learn. And that's like what I really learned. I was like, okay, so this is like what money is, just to hold out on spending it immediately, and then just like save it. Of course, easier said than done, but so that's definitely like a life lesson that I learned. Do you guys have anything? Because I'm trying to think of something for the second part of that question.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Oh, I got one. I can actually answer both.
Okay.
I can actually answer both. I remember back in high school, I think it might have been like I know it wasn't me when I was a senior. It was either when I was a sophomore or a junior in high school, and my teacher, who I've known since I was in middle school, he ran a like a breakout class, and so no, I had to be in a sophomore. No, I don't know. I'm just putting it like this: between my sophomore year and my junior year in high school, arguably one of my favorite teachers. What he did was, of course, he taught history. Okay, cool, great. For like the first 45 minutes of class, and then that last 15, what he taught us was a little bit about what it means to save money, like get you an IRA, do this and do that. And so in my junior year of high school, he had like an actual class where it was more so about life skills. He called it a life skills class. And one of the things he talked about was always make sure to save up enough money for a rainy day, And he was like, even if you could save like 20, 30, $40, he said, do that and, and put it in a high interest bearing account and make sure, over time, you just throw, whatever money you can, just throw it in there, store it in there, and so when you need it, you'll actually have more than what you put in. He said, but then again, he said, also do keep in mind that the interest rates are not going to be the same no matter what financial institution you go to. So do your research as far as which financial institution has a really good interest rate for saving money, and go with that. I think the one I wish I would have learned sooner, and I had to agree with Barack, is about your FICO scores, about your credit scores, and how it actually impacts you as you get older. And I wish that would have got taught maybe in middle school and high school, because of course by the time you're 17, 18, you're getting fresh you're about to graduate high school, already out the gate, you're going to get a crap load of credit card offers and loan offers, and you're just not even barely into the world yet, and it's very enticing because now you're walking around with $1,000 credit limit and you rack that bad boy up and you're wondering why your credit's all messed up. And it's like, well, nobody taught me. It's like, yeah, nobody taught you. That's why you got suckered in. But I wish that part I would have learned a whole heck of a lot sooner. And I'll be open. I'll be honest. This is kind of the reasons why I'm like slowly rebuilding my credit per se, is because when I was 17, 18, I was one of those knuckleheads that got sucked in, who jacked up the credit at a very young age because nobody taught me. Nobody taught me, like, hey, this is important. Don't do this. And it wasn't until I was in my early to mid 20s, that's when I kind of just like buckled down. It's like, hey, if I want to get this house and try to be debt free by the time I retire, like, I got to make some moves. I got to do some changing around. And fortunately, I've been able to do so. And so my credit report is not the super best, but it's not the super worst. It's still workable. And so still paying off little people here and there, just so I can get it right, per se. And even then, like, one of the goals I wrote for myself was like I had like 4 of my biggest dings on my credit report was try to get those knocked out the way before the end of the year. That's my deadline. By December 31st of 2021, I want to get all those major heavy hitters off my credit report. So when I go into the next year, the only thing I should have on my credit report that's going to be reporting would be, of course, the one credit card that I do have. And also, so true. So true. Oh, so true. You'll be surprised. So true.
I'm dead.
But also at the same time, when I go into the next year, that I will be at a better standing with my credit score and be able to have a little bit more leeway and not be constantly worried and have that pressure leaning behind me, like, oh, I'm still in debt. Like, no, I'll be that much closer to becoming debt free. And again, the only thing I'll probably have left on is student loans. But even then, with the majority of those that I took on at an early age because I was young and dumb, and went to a college that did not teach me nor prepare me for crap. Hopefully those can get forgiven. And then again, that's really it. Really it. You know, the one college loans I do have is for what I racked up from the past 2-3 years. You know, I'm fine with that. But all the other ones, if those can get going, great. But even still, like I'll be in a better position. I'll be in a better position by next year versus what I am right now. So yeah, learning about credit scores and FICO scores earlier in life, yes. And then the tool of saving just for a rainy day, yeah, those are mine.
I have so how I learned about I guess being good with a credit card was honestly, like when you're in school and your teacher just sort of, goes like slightly off topic and just starts talking about some stuff. This is like one of those cases. Like I was in math class, and I don't know how the topic of like credit cards and stuff came about. I guess because we were seniors and about to go to college, so they're gonna credit companies were probably gonna start attacking us. Anyway, so like my math teacher was saying like, oh, the trick to getting like to the class, it was like the trick to getting like a good credit score or whatever, or being good is like just to buy little things, little inexpensive things and then pay it off. So, just like, just buying like a pack of gum or something, paid off, like little things and just paid off just to build up your credit score. And I didn't get a credit card until after college, honestly. And I remembered just that little freaking tidbit of information.
Mm-hmm.
And so like I would only use my credit card for gas and tolls at the time, but I wasn't really driving through tolls at the time. But yes, it was mainly just gas I was using my credit card for. So it's like, all right, I spent this much on gas, I'm going to pay off credit card at the end of the month. And I just kept doing that to build up my credit score. Mm-hmm. But I could, like if I didn't learn that, I'm not even entirely sure. Like I'm not saying like my parents didn't know, but I don't really remember them telling me what to do. I think they did know what to do. Of course, like I don't know, but like I don't remember. I don't really recall them telling me, "Oh, just buy something cheap and then pay it off." And they were never really like on me about my credit card. Now that I think about it,
right?
Because I wasn't living at home. Like they weren't just like, oh, make sure you're not like running up your credit. No, they never. I guess they just assumed I was responsible, but I probably just totally forgot. But regardless, I just sort of knew to do that because I knew that a credit card is, it's not as glamorous as they make it out to see. I always just kind of learned that credit cards are like bad. So. Like, right. I don't know, this can get me into a lot of trouble, so let me be super, super cautious with this.
Right. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Mm. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess I had a few things, because even the answers I was going to give, I felt like were going to be related to this, but because that's like the only thing I can really, not like the only skill I have in life, but like when it comes to a life skill, I would say this is definitely my best domain. Like just like outside of whatever technical work skills I've learned, it would be financial stuff. Like the credit card is one that I've learned, thankfully. Thank you for bringing that up. Because I think it was a church friend, like a youth leader. He was like, his dad, I guess, had near perfect credit where like everything he paid, he used credit card for. He like paid it off basically immediately. And so he was saying that apparently he was eligible for a black card. And at the time I didn't really know what that was. He was like, yeah, like they give that out to people where like you can basically buy an island with it because people know that your credit is that good. So he said his dad was eligible for a black card. Not to mention his dad was involved in a lot of stuff internationally. So I feel like he already had a good reputation with different stuff. So I was just like, dang. So I really did use my credit card like that. I would pay off the full balance or even just pay like a balance that existed as it would show up, because I still paid like my statement balance, but when you would do that, you still had a balance left. You wouldn't pay interest on it, but like basically everything you spent in the next cycle would still be there. So sometimes I would just have that balance, though it wasn't always that feasible. But at least I wasn't like getting myself into credit card debt, at least not until kind of recently, like shortly before COVID. I actually had just done some moves to pay that down, but that's a different conversation. When it also came to saving, that was another big one where, and someone I met at a tech conference, like a Black and Computing conference, and somehow I just struck up a conversation with this guy who I think he was a PhD student, somewhere at it was somewhere in the South, but either case, he was saying that he was, I think at that point, engaged or at least had a girlfriend, and he mentioned having credit card debt. He basically was like he started paying down the credit card bill every month or whatever he needed to pay until it was off, and then he basically took that same amount of money that would have gone towards a bill and put it towards savings because you're used to not having the money, so you're not going to miss it. And I was like, I like that. So then shortly after that, because that was that was like June 2017, I remember. After that, I remember I moved apartments that summer. It was my first year in grad school. I had just finished my first year in grad school. So my rent was higher, and then I was saving some amount, like call it 500, probably a little less than that, I think. But my rent was cheaper by like a little less than $500. So I was like, oh, this is cool. Why don't I take this money and put it towards savings? And then that year also, I had just gotten an Acorns account, like around my birthday. So that was March 2017. So I remember somewhere in the middle of the year, July-ish, I basically started taking that money, putting it into my Acorns account, which started growing that pretty rapidly because that's a good amount of money a month to be putting away. So it wasn't really savings, but like I actually am glad that I did it there and not just savings, because savings is trash. Well, that's another one, is high yield savings accounts. I forgot where I learned that, but I remember back in the day, people talked about annuities, CDs. I still don't really know what those things are. But I feel like now I just look at high interest savings account, especially online accounts. A friend of mine gave me this advice. She's a Black woman who's also, I didn't reach out to her. I haven't talked to her in like a year, I feel like. But she's a PhD student in like neuroscience or something. And so, again, people who aren't necessarily in the financial field, but very smart people who've decided to take charge of their financial lives. And she was talking about high interest savings accounts that you can get like 2% plus interest. And so I got one called Varo Bank. I forgot when, probably in 2019. And so their interest could go up to 2.8%. 2.12 was the base rate. 2.8 was if you did certain things, like you had to have like direct deposits and a certain amount of transfers or a certain amount of debit card transactions. And now it's like 3%, and you still get the 3% yield. Like interest rates, because of like interest rates being cut to basically how like most, even those high yield interest accounts have plummeted to like 1% or less now, like 0.8%, which is still much better than like your bank's rate of 0.0000 to the 10 to like the negative infinity percent that most savings accounts give you. So 0.8% is much better than that, but it's still not that great. But Varo Bank has managed to still keep their high yield at 3%, but their lower yield is like closer to 0.8%. So I was like, okay, that's really good. Save money that like when you pay a bill off, continue to save that money. And get high yield interest accounts, and also with credit cards, pay off everything as you use it. Not to mention like looking for like 0% APR for like your first year, and then there's just a bunch of other things. I feel like it's all financial. I wish I had more like general life skills to say, but I can't think of many that I learned and wish I had known earlier. Well, actually, this will be the last thing. When it comes to traveling, like I traveled by myself for the first time sophomore year of college, was presenting research at a conference. And so I didn't really understand like certain things. And this was before Uber existed, or at least it wasn't that popular. So this was like February 2013. And I remember, or it was 2014, but in any case, I remember presenting, and I remember having to get like a taxi. Yeah, those things. I had to get a taxi to come pick me up at my dorm and take me to the Baltimore airport. And I made it there, but I literally got woken up by the taxi calling me, which isn't good. I should have had my own alarm. Now on the way back from Seattle, the taxi, they didn't call, I don't think, and so I just had missed it because I overslept, and then I ended up missing the flight, which is not great. But I was able to get it rebooked. I think the person at the airport, because originally I forgot I was going to rebook, but then it was a ridiculously high price, so I was like, "Ooh, yikes!" And I was like, and at that point, I didn't even have a credit card yet, because that's similar to I didn't get my credit card till end of college, like my last semester. So I was like, I do not have this $1,000 or $700 or whatever in my bank account, and then I was just like, this is not good. But that's a really good one.
Mm-hmm.
I'll get onto that one soon. But I just knew that like I wish that I had known like my dad, even when I told him about missing the flight, he was like, this is basic. He's like, oh yeah, this was basic housekeeping that I should have shared with you. But you can literally have them give you a wake up call for one. Like you can tell the front desk, I want a wake up call at this time. Just literally press some button. Someone answers that you can get that. Phone. I mean, I had a phone. I had alarms, I'm sure, but I just didn't think about it. Like that was a thing when it comes to traveling in a hotel, and even being able to call them and say I want to sleep in. They might only give you 15 or 30 minutes, an hour if you're lucky, but you can check out like a little bit later. So I've learned a few different things with traveling, because I used to do it a lot for conferences, like at least once or twice a semester at one point, 4 times a semester. And so I was kind of getting good at like different things when it came to booking the travels, and whatever. But anyway, that's probably like the last thing I can talk about.
Right on. Right on.
Well, Barack, I wanted to ask, how old are your friends? It's always curiosity. But no, it's true. Like cooking is a really, really, really valuable skill.
Oh yeah. Agreed. 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 I mean, she's. I know last year picked up gardening, and this year it actually paid off. It actually paid off. Like just I know while Barack, while he's still typing, just so you guys can see what I grew. That's an okra.
Hey.
And there's another one. And I grew these ones this year, like this season. I got some raspberries that are growing, and I got some peppers as well.
Oh, nice.
And also I did a cucumber. Actually, I had a cucumber plant. Grew that and turned out way better than the ones bought at the store. Way better. But yeah.
That's how it always is. Okay. Oh. Well, you're a lot younger than I thought.
Yeah, for some reason, I just imagined 34, 35 years old. I mean, maybe he is, but
I guess with the name Barack, or Barack, I don't know. I just assumed it was like, I don't know, like in the 40s. Hey!
Yeah. Yes.
I like it.
I got what else did I do? What else besides that? I was trying to grow. Well, I actually got a blackberry plant back there, and I got some other plants back there as well. But yeah, I mean, picking up gardening and seeing everything kind of come a little bit later. I know with my raspberries, they're developing now, which is late for like Michigan growing berries, but still, they taste way better. Oh my gosh. I'll send pictures. I'll send pictures when I pick them off. But yeah, that's another skill. And then of course fishing and some other stuff. But yeah, that's another topic for another time, another day. It is. It is. But, you know, we are going to skedaddle and get some kind of something, R&R, whatever. I'm telling you, that's the goal. That is the goal. I don't want to do it. I don't want to have a whole operation. I just want to be able to grow enough to the point where if folks want to come and pick off, also known as glean, if they want to glean off, go for it. You're not hurting me at all. And then, like I said, I also want to pick up hunting and go hunting. And so want to like hunt deer, wild turkey, duck, you know, elk, bison, all other good stuff. Do that. And so again, if I don't have to go out to the store to get my stuff, I don't need to. You know?
Yeah. Gardening is going to be a topic of conversation. I mean, the fall is the harvest, at least that's what they say. So,
right.
Yeah, we're in like fall harvest season.
Okay, so that's it. We'll see when, but absolutely. And I thank you for saying this again because I kept forgetting, but like gardening is the topic that, whether it's urban gardening or just like so many avenues that conversation could go. So expect the gardening topic, y'all, at some point. One bit to close out, I was gonna respond to Misha's thing. I think it was definitely 4 times a year, 5 times a year, maybe. Like maybe 2 conferences in the summer, 2 in the fall, 1 in the spring. That's how I remember it. Like that's the most that I did. Definitely not a semester because that's actually kind of crazy. That's like once a month. But yeah, 5 times a year even is still like a good amount of travel, and thank God most of it was like paid for or at least reimbursed because your boy was not shelling out $500 conference fees, hundreds of dollars of plane tickets, and like maybe $800 a hotel because easily it's $200 a night, especially for like the Hyatt or one of those nicer hotels where they have those conferences. You know, I was not paying that myself. What the heck? Yeah. But anyways, thank you, Brock. Thank you for your comments and questions. Yes. Everyone in general, but since you mentioned your comment.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you, everybody.
Thank you, everybody. And with that, we'll catch you guys next week. Same time, same channel, same trio. And again, as always, you never know. We may have a special guest. And shout out to Erica, Jeannie coming in. Barack, Mish. I know Julia, she was in here not too long ago. Mark.
Whispering Eyes.
Yes. T4Y. Thank you for showing up. Whispering Eyes. Thank you for showing up. Mooted. Thank you for showing up.
Yeah.
And I'm just scrolling up just to see who all showed up and everything else. Thank you guys for showing up. And even those who are just kind of chilling in the shadows, thank you guys for showing up as well. We love you guys. We appreciate you guys. So we will catch you guys next week. And, you know, you never know. We have a different topic. So peace. Good night, friends. Catch you later.
Night, y'all. Love.